Let's chat some more about the round robin style tournaments that will be taking place during the FIFA February International Window. This next tournament is unique in the sense that it's kind of in its first edition, the first ever Women's Revelations Cup hosted by Mexico. Doing a little bit of our preview here. We've got Mexico as a host, Costa Rica, Colombia, and Nigeria will be participants in this first edition of the tournament. Going to take place in León, Guanajuato during February. All of these are taking place during February, kicking off on the 15th through the 21st. We've got count them, three World Cup participating nations in this tournament. You'll love to see it. Any of the competitions that have
Yeah.
three-ish type of World Cup bound team, I think are really intriguing competitions. She Believes Cup is the only tournament that's going to have all four World Cup participating nations. Some of the others are three, and Revelations Cup in Mexico is one of those. Now, I think this is going to be a pretty interesting competition because although Mexico didn't qualify for the World Cup, it's a second consecutive failure to qualify for the program. And I think with that was part of the motivation to launch
Mhm.
another tournament like this for the senior program. They're a program that's trying to turn things around, and I think in light of that failure to qualify, they've got some time in front of them till
Yeah.
2027 to try to get some things together, to try to build as a program, as a team. I think they tried to make that first step in making a new head coaching hire. We saw at the conclusion of the CONCACAF W Championship that despite a lot of the good work and a lot of the very cool things that we got to see under the tenure of Monica Vergara, unfortunately, she did not accomplish the main goal, which was to get this team back to the World Cup. And due to their exit, there was also an exit for Vergara, so they needed to make a new hire, and they went and they hired Pedro Lopez, who had spent most all of his career really with Spain. So they went outside the box a little bit.
Yeah.
This could for me is considered a little bit of an out of the box hire for this program because for so long since its foundation, it's really been sort of, Mexican Federation in-house coaching led so long by Leo Cuellar. We're talking over the span of almost 2 decades. Then his son getting involved in the Mex and Chris Cuellar, um, Roberto Medina, someone who was sort of part of that Leo Cuellar kind of coaching tree, and Monica Vergara as well. Even though she was a former player and had a lot of great experiences, to bring into that head coaching role as someone who also coached the U teams, whether it was U17 or U20, was also someone under that
Right.
Cuellar family coaching tree. So to have Pedro Lopez in this head coaching role, it's a little bit different. I guess it could be considered one of those out of the box hires. And this really might be the first opportunity for this team to try to get those first steps in terms of competition against other nations. And I love that it's Nigeria. I love that it's Costa Rica, a CONCACAF rival, and I love that it's a CONMEBOL rival in Colombia. But when I'm looking at all four of these teams, Lisa, when I'm looking at Mexico, Colombia, Nigeria, Costa Rica, I really think the two to watch out for are going to be Colombia and Nigeria. And I
Yep.
think I'm going to give the edge a little bit to Colombia. I think they're going to be the ones lifting the first ever Women's Revelation Cup in Mexico.
Oh, you heard it here first. I like that prediction. I agree. I want to go back to what you initially said. The fact that Mexico is not in the World Cup. I know that's tough for you. I mean, it's tough for a lot of people, but I think that's really what jazzed them up to have this tournament and to be the hosts of it, right? Like to be able to get in these other nations in Costa Rica, Colombia, and Nigeria that are all going to the World Cup and say, hey, we're going to have this really good competition. We're going to host it. We'll get other World Cup teams here. I think that to me, it's already looking like a page is being turned on this federation in Mexico about where they want this program to go, where they want to be in the next 4 years. And that is back at a World Cup. And this is kind of setting the tone for how you get there over the next couple of years. I really like this tournament, and the fact that it's the first of its kind makes it a little bit more special, right? A lot of these tournaments are new, right? We're talking about their second year, their first year, all with respects or besides the She Believes Cup that is in its seventh or eighth, ninth year of existence at this point. So the fact that they took this Revelations Cup and decided to advance it from just a youth tournament to this women's tournament is fantastic. Yeah, I mean, I think when you talk about these different nations and looking at their FIFA rankings, right? We know Colombia is the highest in this one. They're ranked 27th right now. Mexico, who's not in the World Cup, ranked 35th. Costa Rica, 37th, and Nigeria, 45. But those rankings, I don't think are very telling of the actual talent that these nations have. Because as you mentioned, Nigeria is one of these teams that I'm keeping an eye on. I want to know what they're doing. We saw the United States play them in September of last year. And although the United States beat them both times, those were 2 wins for the US. The competition that Nigeria can put up against teams is incredible. It's really fun to watch. And then you look at teams like Costa Rica and Colombia, they've got recent history against each other. They played during that September FIFA window. Colombia won both times. I think it was 1-0 and 2-0 over Costa Rica, but that's going to be a matchup that those two teams very familiar with each other and they meet again in such short succession again in this Revelations Cup. But to me, Colombia, Mexico, that's a game. That is the match that I am so, so excited to
Love
see. I
that.
think Colombia will maybe come out on top of this tournament, right? If we're making those predictions, I'm with you on that one. Colombia is going to raise the first ever Revelations Cup trophy, but I want to watch Colombia, Mexico. That's a game I'm hands down excited to see.
You know, I'm high on this Colombia team. You know, I'll just be frank
Yeah.
about it. Um, I was excited to watch their run during that epic summer of soccer in July 2022. They ended up as runners up in the Copa America Femenina, falling to reigning longtime champions Brazil.
Mm-hmm.
But the players that they've got on this team, there's a lot of really good individual pieces, young players
Yeah, very
on this
young.
team that have sort of been building together for quite some time. And I think when you're looking at this short timeline in the build up to the World Cup, establishing that cohesion is very, very important. But I feel like this is a team that might have a little bit of that already just because of
Mm-hmm.
the amount of time that they have spent together already at this point. So, taking a look at, just sort of that run that they had. In the summer, but how they're not unfamiliar with playing CONCACAF competition either, right? Even though it's two different confederates, whether it's CONCACAF or CONMEBOL, the Latin American diaspora is not unfamiliar with going head to head, right? So coming off of that runners up finish against Brazil, then having a couple friendlies against Costa Rica and coming out winners on that one, and then winners against Paraguay, winners against Zambia. So it's like they're going into this tournament, this Revelations Cup, on a bit of a win streak already. Like they're undefeated, I think, like in their last 4 to 6 matches. So I just am like keeping an eye on that. And I'm just kind of like, I think if you're going into this type of competition, that maybe they could be considered favorites. But on the other side of that, like I said, I'm looking at Nigeria with some similar energy. If they're a fully healthy team, I think they're really good.
Right.
Wreck some things up during this type of tournament. So definitely keep an eye on it for sure. Moving into February, that one, like I said, kicking off on the 15th, concluding on the 21st.